going on a little bit earlier this evening rather than some of the post 8 o'clock streams I've been doing in this ongoing nutty month. The fact that we're already halfway through the month of January is absurd. I feel like the new year was literally yesterday. I know that's cliche to say, but given this news cycle, given where the Ravens stand, given what's happened since the regular season finale loss in Pittsburgh, I can't even wrap my head around the start of 2026. So hopefully you guys are enjoying just the wall-to-wall, round-the-clock type of content. I'm probably a little bit more short with some of you than I'd prefer to be typically. I'm going to chalk that up to limited sleep. I'm not working out just simply because of what's required to follow this and do due diligence to the point that we can justify, getting on here and as much as we possibly can, giving you fresh, up-to-date information. So appreciate you guys, as always, for being here. Have a brand new sponsor in 2026, and it's the folks at FanDuel. So welcome to FanDuel. Appreciate their support moving forward. We'll take a look at the NFL games for divisional round weekend coming up in just a bit. And as always, thanks to my longest-standing sponsor, Preston Automotive Group, as well. Appreciate you guys, as always, for being here. If you could on the way in, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, consider becoming a channel member or a gift-giving membership, and off we go. Let's talk about it, because I think there's a clue. There might be a clue in this ongoing search. Connor Hughes, all things New York. He's reporting that he's hearing that among the candidates for John Harbaugh in terms of his future defensive coordinator in New York, knowing that John, I don't know if it's confirmed yet by the team accounts, but they're probably just putting together the language and negotiating the nitty-gritty that'll ultimately make him the next head coach of the New York Giants. But why do I bring this up? If he's bringing with Anthony Weaver with him to New York, who spent the last couple of years in Miami under Mike McDaniel, then you can cross one name off this list of 16, 15 of which we know of. 16 seems to be the mystery candidate that DaCosta alluded to earlier this week during the press conference. But I think you can cross off Anthony Weaver from the list. Now, he's among the candidates. Among the candidates. Does that mean the Ravens don't plan on extending him a second interview offer? Or is he just keeping a bunch of balls in court here? Not sure. But it does kind of bring you back to a few years ago, does it not? After the 2023 season, the AFC Championship run, where vacancies and teams all throughout the league were interested in poaching members of John Harbaugh's staff, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, knowing that Mike Macdonald was a hot candidate, ended up in Seattle. Denard Wilson, who was coaching in the secondary, ended up in Tennessee as the defensive coordinator. And Anthony Weaver went to Miami to serve a similar role, the same role, under Mike McDaniel, and that's where he's been the last couple of years. Sure would make a lot of sense to me in terms of why you would want him on staff, but why wasn't he the guy a couple years ago? Like, why did you let him walk out of your building to go take the Miami job? If you feel good about him being a candidate a couple years later, then why did you promote Zach Orr instead? Because all due respect to Z.O., I don't think it's hyperbolic to say, and this is nothing against his future, his knowledge for the game, the relatability, how sincere he is. I think it's fair to wonder and speculate whether or not that was a premature decision of John Harbaugh's to promote Zach. So you see where I'm going with this, right? Like, why wasn't it Anthony a couple years ago? Did you just get it wrong? Was your evaluation, your foresight of Zach Orr as a play caller, first-year defensive play caller, I might add, in 2024? Did you just miss? We all swing and miss in different areas. But that's the first thing that I thought of. when this news came down. That, again, it's preliminary perhaps, but Anthony Weaver appears to be a candidate. Don't know if it's a short list or not, but he is on John Harbaugh's list for defensive coordinator candidacy. I think you can pretty much write in ink that Todd Monken, once they get through all the interview processes and satisfying the Rooney Rule, and once he actually becomes officially the next head coach of the New York Giants, you can bet that Todd Monken's going to be serving as his offensive coordinator moving forward. But the reason why I bring this up, maybe, just maybe, the first name of 16, the first of 16, potentially crossed off the list in terms of Baltimore's candidacy at the head coaching position. Let me know what you think of that. We'll get to the guest lines in just a bit. Appreciate you guys for being with me. Anthony has always been known to be that charismatic figure, somebody that knows the Ravens organization and is well respected inside and out for his days as a player, for his days as an assistant. But perhaps he will not be returning to Baltimore. So just something to keep in mind moving forward. And speaking of moving forward, I enjoyed what Grant Cohn had to say yesterday, and maybe you guys caught some of this, but I wanted to break up a snippet of what he and I spoke about when it comes to Robert Saleh's candidacy. He's going to interview for the Ravens on Sunday. He's got a bunch of other interviews as well, a bunch of other requests, I should say, in terms of the head coach position, Tennessee being another one of those. I believe Arizona's on his list as well. But Grant, I asked him point blank, you guys may have heard it last night, do you believe that Robert Saleh deserves another chance at a head coaching gig in the National Football League? And he took the answer in a bunch of different directions, including the potential staff that Robert might cultivate underneath him if he were to become the next head coach. Listen to this from last night.
I believe everyone fails on the Jets. I believe he does. I believe everyone fails on the Jets, kind of like everyone fails on the Raiders. I think even though everyone fails on the Jets, you could see that he had a real positive impact on that club. They had an elite defense. They were somewhat competitive, and then he left, and now they're a dumpster fire once again. And I think the big question with any defensive coach is like, okay, well, who's your offensive coordinator going to be? And I think this year and who's your quarterback going to be? He could theoretically bring Mike McDaniel with him, or he could bring Clay Kubiak with him. Clint's younger brother is the Niners OC right now, but he's not calling plays. And then there's Mac Jones, who the Niners may want to trade. So there's a whole little package deal that he could present to a team, to any number of teams. The Ravens wouldn't be interested in Mac Jones, but they might be interested in Mike McDaniel or Clay Kubiak. Gary Kubiak was the offensive coordinator about 10 years ago. So there's a connection there. Clay's really good. I mean, Kyle Shanahan speaks extremely highly of him. He said a couple of weeks ago, like, no offense to anyone else, but he's as good as any coach I've ever worked with. Meaning, like, I know people think a lot of Sean McVay and Mike McDaniel, but and Clint Kubiak, but Clay Kubiak might be better than all of them, which is really nice of Kyle Shanahan to say. And it might be true. I think he's called plays once or twice in the NFL. So he has a lot to prove. Still, I think he's ready. And in this last game, there was that critical play, first play of the fourth quarter, where the Niners were down 6 right outside the red zone, and they called a double reverse pass from the wide receiver to McCaffrey from Jawan Jennings. I mean, that swung the game, and Kyle Shanahan said that was Clay Kubiak's call. So if he's anything like his older brother or his dad, he's probably going to be pretty good. He was an English teacher at Houston High School. It's kind of interesting.
Really?
Yes. Interesting guy.
And then he went was he coaching the team?
I think he was coaching the team, teaching English, and then he got like a quality control job with the 49ers on defense, and then he's been working on. He's good. He's a smart guy. Look at it big picture. Kyle Shanahan is universally regarded as a great coach, and he is a hell of a coach. But something happened last year, and they went 6-11, and it's really kind of hard to explain why. Like, they didn't have Christian McCaffrey, but they did have Kittle and Bosa and Warner and Purdy and Kyle, and they went 6-11. And what was different this year? All these guys go down, but Saleh comes back. And I think there's something about it's not just what he can do as a coordinator. It's not just what he can do for your defense. He really is a great leader. And Kyle isn't necessarily a natural leader. He's a hell of a coach,
Okay.
but he's like laid back and low energy as opposed to Sean McVay, who's on crack. You know what I mean? Like Saleh is very high energy. He's a leader of men. It's cliche, but I think it's the truth. And when he leaves, you're going to see a big void in that area. The guy who replaced him initially was D'Amico Ryans, who's kind of like a super Robert Saleh. But once they lost him, they really lost the culture of their team, and Saleh brought it back this year.
Got a lot of respect for Grant Cohn, who does it both ways, if you will. Don't pause me on that one. He does it both ways. And what do I mean by that in this business? He has bridged the gap between traditional and non-traditional media, meaning he does both at a high level. He's in San Francisco's media press corps as a reporter, and I believe technically has something with Sports Illustrated or somewhere along those lines. He's employed by, at least on a part-time basis, by a legitimate traditional media outlet. But if you go and look at what he's doing on YouTube, I'm pretty sure he's approaching, don't quote me on this, but I think he's over the 100,000 subscription count number, if I'm not mistaken, or right around it, and maybe even north of that. Big fish. Met him at the Super Bowl last year. Then we got together at the Combine. Now, none of that really matters to you guys. I get it. But just so you know who it is that we're working with here. And Grant's been closely following the 49ers for a while, headed up by Kyle Shanahan, who has his own tree. We've been talking a lot about the McVay tree, right, recently, since we learned of a couple of those names that earned initial interview requests from Eric DeCosta and company, the Chris Shulas, the Nate Scheelhaases. We'll have an update on Nate in just a second here. So that's what, when it comes to Shanahan, I trust Grant and his analysis. And so when asked if Robert Saleh, who's been serving under Shanahan, a second stint, I might add, in San Francisco as defensive coordinator, if he deserves another head coaching gig, I wanted to hear what he had to say. And he says, quote, "I believe he does. It's not just what he can do as a coordinator. It's not just what he can do for your defense. He really is a great leader. Saleh is very high energy. He's a leader of men. It's cliche, but I think it's the truth. And when he leaves, you're going to see a big void in that area." The guy who replaced him initially was D'Amico Ryans, having a tremendous amount of success so far, and especially this year in Houston. Once they lost him, they really lost the culture of their team. Saleh brought it back this year. And look, I'm not ready to rule out candidates yet. It's still very early in the process. Now, those of you that have been following along with some of our commentary in the Discord, you know that I've been kind of hovering around and going back and forth on my own makeshift top 5 finalist candidate list, right? And I'm wondering, I'm getting to the point where Clint Kubiak, maybe, we're going to talk about Clay in just a second here. They're brothers. They're going to face off this weekend, which is pretty cool in the divisional round. I'm getting to the point where I think I'm going to take Kubiak. He's flirting with outside my top 5. And why do I say that? It's not offensive mind. It's not family pedigree. It's not offensive prowess. It's not track record. It's not experience. It's personality. And when I think about Steve Bisciotti, the dynamic character that the entire NFL world was reminded of just the other day with his 64-minute press conference, I don't know if a Clint Kubiak, all due respect, matches up with what he might be looking for to be the next John Harbaugh. To use his words in his response, a fiery response, I might add, to Tony Dungy's criticism that came in last week when ultimately the news came down that John Harbaugh had been dismissed. Robert Saleh, to me, he's not without his shortcomings. No retread, ex-coach is. But Robert, to me, if we're strictly speaking to charisma and personality and leadership and reputation, that's a guy that I want to be the face of my franchise alongside my quarterback, of course. That's a guy that I want to be the mouthpiece of my franchise. If we're solely talking about that criteria, there's a lot more that's going to be a part of the process. I recognize that. But sometimes, like it or not, there is a PR and media component to all 32 jobs at the head coach position league-wide, and that's a part of it. Now, as for another member of Kyle Shanahan's staff, you heard what Grant had to say. Quote, he could theoretically bring Mike McDaniel. That's not who I'm referring to. But he could theoretically bring Mike McDaniel with him, or he could bring Clay Kubiak. Clint's younger brother is the 49ers OC right now, but he's not calling plays. Clay's really good. Kyle Shanahan speaks extremely high of him. So we turn our attention to 37-year-old brother of Clint, son of Gary, and the current offensive coordinator in terms of title in San Francisco, even though he's not calling the plays, Clay Kubiak. He was brought in as an assistant quarterbacks coach in 22 and 23, technically began with the organization in San Francisco in 2021 as a defensive quality control coach. Prior to that, he was coaching high school football, a Jesuit college. Went to Colorado State, did Clay. And again, he'll turn 38 in October. So while there's a level of risk, just like there is attached to every single one of these candidates, as we've argued about throughout the last 2 weeks, engaging, what is real risk versus, calculated risk, perhaps. He hasn't called plays, at least on a full-time basis yet. But perhaps the name, perhaps the pedigree, perhaps Shanahan's endorsement rings true in a guy like Steve Bisciotti's overall analysis as he's getting ready to make this decision. One more clip from Robert Saleh, and I will open up these guest lines here shortly as you guys make your way in. If you could like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell, would go a long way. You could also become a channel member or give membership today should you be interested. I'll get to as many super chats as I can if they come in. Grant, as I mentioned, is a reporter, and he has access to media press conferences. And I really enjoyed this clip from Robert and him having an exchange just a couple weeks ago. You talk about X's and O's and nuance. We can talk about personality and charisma and all those things, right, that are a part of the process when you're looking for your next head coach. But take a listen to this in terms of his football knowledge, how he articulated it, and the answer to Grant's question, which went viral within San Francisco circles just a couple weeks ago.
Said he wanted to shadow Jackson Smith and Jigba. A couple of years ago, Travarius Ward did that here. What are like the strengths and weaknesses, the positives and negatives of doing something like that from a schematic standpoint?
That's a good question. All right. We can go long on this one, but the reality is it's easy for the guy who travels, right? I got that guy. I'm going to travel wherever I want, especially since we're a zone-based defense, right? So if it was man coverage, easy for him. But then it is a little bit more difficult for the other guys. Like, how does everybody else align? Because we're not – do you go match where everyone just picks a number? What if that number's not on the field? Do you pick a different number? Do you or is it, all right, we're all going to align off of Demo, and what if Demo's in the slot? Does that put the nickel out on number one where he's not used to being? So techniques change within your man principles because now you're in different locations. All right, now put yourself in zone. You're trying to match up where he is, and you're matching up now. Demo's in the slot. Does that mean Upton's now playing corner third, which he hasn't done all year? And so there's a lot of new techniques that you're going to ask a guy to do. So it's very expensive, not for the guy traveling, but for the guys not traveling. If that makes sense. Now, can it be done? Of course, it can be done. Do we have it in our inventory? Absolutely. Can we? Maybe. So we'll see.
That's kind of a dope answer. Have you ever heard, this is not to slight anybody within the Ravens side of things, but I just think that the ship that John Harbaugh tends to run and steer is let's give bare minimum. Let's give bare minimum to the media. And I get it. I do. And it worked for him. Don't know if that's going to work in New York. With the New York media, best of luck there, Harbs. But I just thought that was pretty dope and a way of kind of peeling back the curtain and the intricacies of the cornerback position or just traveling in general when it comes to life as a defensive back. Again, I keep thinking about it. Harbs in the New York media, man, there's a real chance that that's not going to work out well. And he's being celebrated right now on, of course, the front page of the Post and everywhere else, all throughout New York. And they're dancing in the streets, maybe as they should be in East Rutherford, because it's been a rough decade. But how you deal with the media, look, it matters. Maybe not to football operations, but it certainly matters in terms of the way that you build your program. As for the schedule surrounding Saleh, again, he will interview with the Ravens and Titans according to Rappaport on Sunday. And there's a bunch of other candidates that the Ravens still have to conduct initial interviews with. One of those names, as we've talked about, is Rams pass game coordinator Nate Scheelhaase. And it looks like he's going to have his interview on Friday. And that's the day before, 2 days before, excuse me. I forgot the Rams are in the late window on Sunday. They'll play in Chicago. The Rams and Bears will play in Chicago in the divisional round primetime game this coming Sunday evening. So he'll have a couple days before that game and the next couple days, really tomorrow, the next 24 hours. I'm sure he's learned and known about his schedule for a while, but he will have a chance to prepare for his Ravens interview, which is coming up again tomorrow. Today's Thursday. We don't know what time or day it is given this start to the year and torrid pace that we've been on, but another head coaching interview for the Ravens, which I would guess is virtual, is on deck for tomorrow. So Saleh's on Sunday. Nate Scheelhaase is tomorrow. And if you haven't been following Nate and some of our analysis there, young guy, 35 years old, lit it up as a quarterback at the University of Illinois. Got his career started in coaching at his alma mater in football operations in 2015, and he's been grinding ever since. Gigs with Iowa State, and been with the Rams the last couple of years under Sean McVay's tutelage, which obviously, if we're talking about Shanahan, if we're talking about McVay, those names obviously, deservedly so, they get your attention. So that's coming up tomorrow in terms of the overall schedule. Now, I liked Poetic Justice's comment here. Been getting yelled at lately for not pulling up enough non-super chats. So I guess I'll have to just fall in line to the yelling. Poetic Justice writes, I think laid back low energy works really well with Lamar. Maybe not everybody else. I think Mike McDaniel and Lamar would probably have the strongest relationship out of the coaches. I like what you said there. But it's not just about Lamar. Is he the most important piece of the puzzle? Should he have a level of influence? You bet. But it shouldn't only be about Lamar, particularly if you fall in love with a defensive-minded head coach. Because if that's the case, then maybe you want a laid-back offensive coordinator to come along with your defensive-minded head coach, whether it be Saleh, whether it be Minter, a Weaver. You all know the other candidates that are out there. You know what I mean? So I'm with you there initially. I see where you're coming from there. But you want to make sure more than anything else, you get the head coach right in terms of candidacy. Now, I know the hope and the goal, if everything goes right, that Lamar's in Baltimore for the rest of his career, and that spans over the next decade. But there is no guarantee that's the case at all. With that said, remember what Marlon said on his podcast earlier this week? I found this to be really interesting.
Never had a bad relationship. He just, at first, when I got there, he just came in a little hot. But I truly saw him transition with the new wave of people, and even like Lamar. I feel like Lamar really mellowed him out because, to get the most out of your guys, that way of coaching is basically extinct in the NFL. So he had to adapt to his ways, to the ways of the current player. So
I found that. I mean, look, it's a simple snippet. It's Marlon being Marlon in a lot of ways in terms of just being like schizophrenic on his podcast. The guy can't sit still. By the way, he's taking off-season dance classes I saw on Twitter. So, good God. But point is, yes, connecting, reaching, resonating with Lamar Jackson is absolutely one of the most important priorities in this search. But it shouldn't be the only one. And if I'm Steve Bisciotti and I do fall in love and I think it's the best interest in the team moving forward, the stability of the team, to pick a defensive-minded head coach who can do a little bit of everything, then ultimately I want to make sure that guy sells me on an offensive coordinator who can reach Lamar and ultimately get the best out of Lamar. You guys are going to be excited to know, those of you posted up in the waiting room, that part of the reason why I was 4 minutes late today for our 5 o'clock show was because I was trying to download a 90-second timer. You heard that right. I'm giving your fucking asses 30 more seconds. You better make the most of it. To the guest lines we go. I appreciate you guys for being with me. Duke Shaka. What's going on, Duke? 90 seconds. May have a walk and talk scheduled for tonight as I attempt to pry myself away from the life that's been, shameless plug, in this and a seat chair, pressed cheek to cheek for literally the last 15 days. Let's open them up. Guest line access is pinned in the live chat. Appreciate you guys for being here. Chronological order in terms of how you came in, and we're going to continue to talk about the specifics of what this live stream is all about. And that is a new clue. And the new clue is the fact that Anthony Weaver, who's one of the 16 candidates that the Ravens have initially interviewed, is also a candidate to serve as John Harbaugh's defensive coordinator with the New York Giants in 2026. What does that mean? Perhaps the first name of those 16 we can actually cross off. I think we can cross off Matt Nagy's name. But technically, I think we can actually begin to have the conversation if the first name can be crossed off. Duke, Dre, Manny, Julian, let's open them up, fellas. Great to have you back, Duke. 90 seconds on the clock, my brother.
Love to see you, man. Love to see you. I hope you get you a foam, what do they call it? Memory foam on the ass, by the way.
Likewise,
Need
brother.
that.
What you got for
Need
us
that.
tonight?
So I just wanted to say Robert Saleh is kind of like, well, that's not what I want to say. I want to start off with something different, but I'm going to say that. Robert Saleh it's no bullshit, if you get what I'm saying. It's like, all right, we know if we can't beat them man and we can't beat them zone, listen, you got to use them both. Like if Kyle Hamilton lines up with the tight end at all times, right? And then we got Nate Wiggins and we got Marlon Humphrey lining in on somebody else. That's what we're going to do. He doesn't worry. He's not worried about who's on and off the field, right? When it comes to the offense, no matter what, this is where you line up. If this guy comes on the field, hey, no matter what, even if Kyle Hamilton got to strap it up, bring your ass on the field. Let's go. That's what he's on, right? Okay. But also, I want to say, Matt Nagy, no, of course, but Clay Kubiak, Colorado State, obviously. Clay Kubiak could be our savior at offensive coordinator. He's not going to be, and then with Weaver, because I only got 12 seconds left, with Weaver, I'm going to be honest with you. I know about 80% he's going to go with John Harbaugh. Like, to be honest with you, he's going to go with John Harbaugh because he's got a better idea of what's going on there in that system. He doesn't want to come in as something new and be like, oh, which he's been a Raven before, but he doesn't want to be with something new. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, he's like, fuck that. I know who the fuck John Harbaugh is. We're good. I'm coming in here ready to go. And obviously he's on defense, he's great. His mind is great and his attitude is great when it comes to that.
Thanks, Duke. Great to see you, man. Appreciate the call.
Great to see you too. And hey, listen, go get you a memory foam pad. I'm serious. It helps a lot.
Here's the funny part, Duke. Thanks for the call, brother. The funny part about this is my chair, and again, it's another shameless plug, and a seat is a dope chair. This thing's incredible. Now, you can't see the whole thing, but I'm telling you right now, I'd sit in this thing as long as I need to. Duke, I got you. As I mentioned at the top, before we get back to the guest lines and continue to talk about candidacy and perhaps the first name that we can cross off, FanDuel is an official sponsor of the Bobby Baltimore channel, which is a pretty big deal, guys, in terms of channel growth and opportunity. So I want to shout out Believe, who's now representing me in this space. And I'd like to shout out FanDuel for the support. Let's take a look at what's going on this weekend in the divisional round games. Buffalo. Ooh, that's going to be a good one. Buffalo 1.5-point underdogs in Denver divisional round. Over under set at 46.5. Denver's defense coordinated by Vance Joseph, one of the Ravens candidates. Can't wait to watch that one. San Francisco, Seattle. Again, 49ers are banged up, man. But this is the game right here that I think we're all going to want to have our eyes peeled on. Why? There's multiple candidates that could potentially be a part of the Ravens staff in 2026. We've already talked about Saleh and Kubiak, but don't forget, Clay's brother, Clint, is Mike McDonald's offensive coordinator in Seattle. That's going to be a fascinating one. Seattle, 7-point home favorites. Game of the weekend, if you ask me, from a Ravens perspective. Houston, 3-point road underdogs at New England. Mike Vrabel has turned around the Patriots like all of Big Blue Giants Nation hoped that Harbaugh can in year one. The fourth place schedule is important, and that's what I tried to make the argument for when Sarah asked me if I feel like Harbaugh in year one, assuming that Scatterbo and Neighbors come back healthy and Jackson keeps himself healthy, can Harbaugh lead them to the postseason? And I said, look, I think they can become a wild card team they're ceiling a wild card team. And a lot of that has to do with the fourth place schedule that they're going to face coming up next year. Anyway, Patriots, Texans, that's Saturday prime time. And then the final game, Rams at Bears. Chicago, 3.5-point underdogs. Hell yeah. How about Ben Johnson in year one? Another one of those head coaches that you're just like, can that be whoever the Ravens bring in? Can they find a Liam Cohen, Mike Vrabel, Ben Johnson type and mirror it up to what each one of those guys did to turn around their respective organizations and bring their teams to the playoffs in 2025? Because all three coaches did that successfully. 2 are still playing. Thanks to FanDuel. Back to the guest lines we go. We're talking about Anthony Weaver, as I mentioned at the top. And Connor Hughes, reporter for all things New York sports, is noting that John Harbaugh plans to have Anthony Weaver either on staff or at least as one of his candidates for his incoming defensive coordinator as the next head coach of the New York Giants. You ready to cross him off the candidate list? Or is this just getting going? Have the dominoes not yet begun to fall, knowing that Harbaugh is the first of what could become a volcano's worth of news cycle storylines over the next couple weeks? Remember, technically, if we're following this from DaCosta's timeline that he gave on Tuesday, they're only 1 week into a 3-week timeline for how they can ultimately get this thing going. It's a 3-week NFL draft process. That's what DaCosta referred to it as. 90 seconds. You're fucking welcome. Duke didn't thank me for the 90 seconds. Come on, Duke. I know Manny will because he likes to take 90 minutes. And he's getting 90 seconds right now. You're damn right. I'll give him 90 seconds. Welcome to the program, brother. Your 90 seconds starts now, and you are not in your normal chair. Let us know where you are and what do you think of today's news.
I'm just visiting still family. I'm with my dad. On a weekend, I arrive home. But taking my 90 seconds, thank you. I could cross on that list Jesse Minter. You know why? Too much Harbaugh. That's the reason. He's from his tree. So if you're getting away from Harbaugh, if you want fresh ideas, you don't bring Jesse Minter. Like, you interview him to see where he is, but still, it's just like to fill the roster. Who do I really want is, if you don't want someone calm that mixes with Lamar, why not bring either Joe Brady or Mike LaFleur? They seem to be alive as offensive coordinators. So on that tree end, you can bring in Clay if you want, or even Cliff Kingsbury. And as a defensive coordinator, I would want Saleh. I understand Flores' defense, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, but Saleh's not going to take a lateral move, though, obviously.
Yeah.
And LaFleur, go ask Jets fans how LaFleur worked out in New York. And he's not even calling the plays right now.
No.
Same thing with Kubiak, Clay. Not on a full-time basis. Good seeing you, brother. Appreciate you, Manny. You know, it's the tricky thing about this. There will end up being some candidates just by process of elimination. Some head coach candidates will obviously have to either take lateral moves or stay a play caller for the foreseeable future, whether it be in Baltimore or elsewhere, until they ultimately potentially get their next crack at it, if they get a crack at it, to be a head coach again in this league. That's just reality based on the numbers. The competition this year is, sure, there's 8 or 9 vacancies. I guess 8 now, technically, since the Giants have all but confirmed John Harbaugh. But there's a lot more. I know this. There's a lot more candidates than there are openings. That's for damn sure. 90 seconds on the clock. Appreciate you guys for being with me tonight as we approach 1,100 concurrent viewers. If you could, on the way in, like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell, join the Discord group if you haven't already. We're coming up on 1,200 members in that group. 24/7 hub for conversations surrounding Baltimore sports. And sometimes where I curse out some of my longest standing, most committed members, as I did today. Love you, Mike. Fucking pissed me off earlier today. I know that. Yes, you did. I was not smiling as I typed what I did earlier today. And you probably weren't either, to be quite honest with you. But what did he do? He didn't take it personally. He was in the chat earlier on tonight. I appreciate that. Love a good old school motherfucker. Julian, 90 seconds on the clock. Richard, I'm happy too. Give me something to. Richard says, "Wait, you didn't curse me out. Give me something. I'll take it." 90 seconds on the clock, brother. Julian, welcome back to the program. What you got for us tonight? You son of a... You're muted. You know, first you're on the toilet the other day. Wes, welcome back. Let's get you a fresh timer. 90 seconds on the clock, my brother.
Yes, sir. Last night, Bobby, I got a question for you. Last night, whenever you were streaming and you said that Flores wasn't in your top 5, did you mean that he's not in your top 5 of you coaches you think would do well and would perform well, or not your top 5 of who you realistically think has a shot?
I think I factor in like all of those things, all of the above. When I'm putting my finalist list together, it's what do I think Bisciotti and DaCosta in terms of their, and I'll reset part of this. Actually, let's just pause it. I'm not setting a precedent here, by the way, but you asked me a question. Duke's already taken 2 minutes off the top, setting new precedents, isn't he? I put it all, it's all, to me, it's like, okay, trying to forecast who Bisciotti sees in candidates, what he's looking for, 2, their background, 3, reputation, 4, performance. And I'm not ranking that in terms of priority, but I'm putting it all together. I know people think that there's other agendas attached. There truly isn't, but it's a combination of all the above. Back to this.
Well, because I agree in one sense and not the other, because I would agree that I don't know if he's going to be a realistic candidate given the lawsuit stuff, because we've seen collusion between owners before, even like with Lamar, even within our own team. But I think he would be a good coach. Saleh's growing on me. I think the difference, to me, they're like 1A, 1B, Flores and Saleh, because I still want a defensive-minded guy, and Mentor is a close second compared to those two. But I think the difference for me is that when I look within the division at the Steelers opening, we're going to get one coach, they're going to get another. Who would I really be afraid of running the Steelers organization? And to me, if Mentor gets in there, whatever. If Saleh gets in there, whatever. But I feel like if Brian Flores gets in there, they're going to be a tough team to beat. And I really want a coach that has that fuck the Steelers, fuck the opponent. If they're not wearing purple and black, they can go fuck themselves. I want that energy in my locker room. I want to me, that gets the best out of players, especially whenever we look last year, whenever everybody was just so apathetic and down and on the sideline. I need a coach who can bring that energy. I think Saleh can too, obviously. We've seen it. But I feel like Flores, I think, again, the difference is I would feel more scared of a Steelers team led by Flores than Saleh.
I see where you're coming from, and I would not endorse like that being reality. The guy was brought in for a reason to serve under Mike when nobody else would give him a chance, right? As sort of like an assistant to him, and then use that as a way of grabbing the Minnesota job. And he's turned around the Vikings defense in 2 years. To me, though, like, you have to take into account, like, would he help restore what the Ravens have been lacking on that side of the ball now for multiple years? Yeah. Why? Yeah, absolutely. But to me, it's like there has to be more to it than that from his candidacy. And I think that's what I've tried to stress all throughout this process. You know, it's amazing. I dream of the day where I can just be taken genuinely by everyone in the live chat for this as we dig deep into multiple layers that go into the evaluation process of the biggest, most consequential decision in multiple decades with this organization. And apparently that day is not today. Well, it's great to see you, brother.
See you,
Thanks
man.
for the call, man. Appreciate you. Do we want to give Julian a second chance? You just never know what he's going to be doing, man. Shit. Oh, shit. Thanks for being here tonight, you guys. Making sure we're fresh up to date on the timeline. News being recirculated on Nate Scheelhaase's interview. The Ravens will interview him tomorrow. Julian, I don't know if you look frozen. Come in and come out. We're going to Dre, then Maurice, then Julian. Appreciate you guys for being with me tonight. Over 1,100 concurrents and counting. Still, no one's thanked me. It's the only reason I did it. For the 90 seconds, the 30-second increase. Not one. A lot of gratitude inside this goddamn community. Thank you. Thank you all. To Dre we go. Welcome to the program, brother.
What up, bro? Can you hear me all right?
Always.
Yo, you know I'm going to thank you for the 90 seconds because I was the biggest advocate for the 90 seconds. You feel me? Since day one, I was like, I know this motherfucker. You better put 90 seconds up there, man. Come on. So I'm glad you finally, I will say personally, thank you because I advocated for 90 seconds since day one.
You're welcome.
So as far as Weaver, he was in my top three. Weaver, Flores, and Kubiak were my top three. I think I'm sure Weaver's probably going to get that defensive coordinator job with Harbs, and he'll probably bring Zach Orr to be his linebackers coordinator or something like linebackers coach or something like that. Kind of keep that band together a little bit. But as far as Flores is concerned, I think one of the things that we have to remember with the court case is even when the reporters say you had a court case against the league, because it's an ongoing court case, he legally can't talk about it. So you can ask him questions all you want, but because it's an ongoing case, he can't sit up on the podium and say, this is what's happening in the case. No, he legally can't do that. And if he can do that, his lawyers would advise him not to do that. Don't go up there and talk about this case because it's still pending. I really think that Flores would unlock this defense to that Mike McDonald level, right? That was the most recent example of an unlocked Ravens defense, a historic unlocked Ravens defense. And if you get a guy like Flores and teams are only giving up, your defense is giving up 15 to 20 points a game. I mean, we've seen Lamar under two different coordinators score over 30, 40 points, be one of the highest scoring teams in the league under two different coordinators. So if you bring in the right coordinator, Lamar can make it work. We've seen him do that from college, from Greg Roman. I mean, people seem to act like they forget that Harbaugh lined up Lamar at wide receiver as well when he got into the league. All of that whole, they're building a team around Lamar, this is Lamar's team. No, that was a Greg Roman team they built. Greg Roman has historically built his offenses that way since he's been doing his thing. He always gets a mobile quarterback that he's pretty good with, an awesome running game. That was just his pattern. So Lamar is a chameleon on the field because he can do everything. You can put a good, solid play caller with him. But I think the most important thing is to get this defense to back to when we're not giving up more than 20 points a game. If we're not giving up more than 20 points a game, we will win, again, 80% of our games, just as we've done under Lamar Jackson.
Thanks, Dre. Appreciate you, brother.
All right,
safe travels out there. You know, Lamar's worked with, to Dre's point, he's worked with a number of coordinators or personalities over the years. Go back to Bobby Petrino at Louisville, Marty Morningweg, Greg Roman, Todd Monken. You know, to one of your points earlier on, like, I'd be more worried about making sure that Lamar, who he's working with on a daily basis, that personality is Lamar driven more so than the head coach is. Because if you're trying to find the next John Harbaugh, then I guess the goal is to find 18 years, somebody who can be in ball. I don't know if that's actually, the days of that are probably far gone. Shelf life is so different than the league that Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh came into in 2007 and 2008. So let's call it a decade. If you're looking for that guy for the next decade, then you want to make sure, like, who knows? You hope that Lamar is going to be your quarterback in 10 years from now, but you can't guarantee that. And so there has to be other factors involved as well. It's funny. You guys, man, it's like, it's almost some of your obsessions, maybe that's not the right word, some of your desires for Brian Flores in Baltimore is taking away from other candidates' candidacy. Why is that? Why is that the case? Like, that kind of brings me back to, like, the analogy that I gave in the Discord group last night. Evan and I debated it. Because I think that from a coaching perspective, Brian Flores is this year's Tyson Williams or Shamar Bridges or you name it. Guys that became darlings in the preseason or training camp based on what? Okay, that's not to demean Brian. He's a tremendous defensive mind. I had Matthew Collar on just a week or so ago, and he told me just how fantastic he's been in 2 years in Minnesota. Good for him, man. And his players don't have a similar account to the ones that those in Miami did. That's awesome. But it doesn't mean his time in Miami isn't going to influence Steve Bisciotti, Eric DeCosta, and the hiring team. It's not like that's just erased. That has to be looked into. And if that's still legitimately his reputation in the Ravens stakeholders' eyes, then he's not going to be the guy. Oh, man. Chef is currently booing me in the private chat. And by the way, while his win-loss record is not something to look at, obviously, meaning that wasn't impressive during his time in New York, those defenses competed hard and were a bunch of bad dudes. Those Jets defenses under Saleh. Let's not forget that. They weren't competing in terms of win-loss record. But it wasn't because of that defense. Zach says, give me Minter as head coach and McDaniel as offensive coordinator. Both are some of the most sought after now that Harbaugh is off the market. Both of those are some of the most sought after head coach candidates league wide. So I just don't know how realistic that is, unless, as Sarah and I discussed earlier today, with the tweet that we had up from Greg Allman from Fox Sports, who said, hey, Mike might consider taking an offensive coordinator job if it's with the right organization, given some of the other franchises that are out there that aren't the right fit. No different than what some head, like Dante Moore maybe just made the decision on to stay at Oregon another year and not declare for the NFL draft. Now, maybe some of that has to do with that NIL chunk of change. But you know what I mean? Like when you've been through that failure before, the way that a lot of these retreads have, and a lot of that has no fault of their own, more the organizational shortcomings. And Brian's among those in Miami. He couldn't overcome the dysfunction there. Robert couldn't overcome the dysfunction in New York. Mike McDaniel couldn't overcome the dysfunction in Miami. That'll influence the way that you kind of move as a candidate with your next opportunity. Quan says, Bobby the man got fired for winning. He deserves it. Deserves what? The head coach job in Baltimore? It's a little bit more complex than that, brother. But yeah, the allegations allegedly got fired for winning. Correct. Allegedly. Or trying to win. In the tank for Tua. G. Judy says, I remember when almost everyone was demanding that we choose Jason Garrett for head coach. I trust Steve's process and love that Ozzie Newsome is involved in it. Ozzie is a part of the search team, as is Eric DaCosta, as is team president Sashi Brown. And according to Steve, as he mentioned earlier in the week, when they start to narrow it down to a short list, maybe even a top 5 list, he's going to be flying his ass up, to use his words, and maybe Lamar's ass up from Florida to get involved in the process. Back to the guest lines we go. If you could please respect the 90 seconds and thank me for the 90 seconds. How about that? Can I say that? Yes, we've added a 30-second countdown. So it's 90 now. It's been 60. Everybody kept bitching at me. So I decided to listen to the people. Maurice, Julian, round 2. Chef, Richard, Big O. Waiting room's cooking. I got to hit the road here at some point. Hint, hint. So let's be quick. Maurice, take it away, brother. Welcome to the program.
All right, thanks for having me. I'm going to be the second person to tell you thanks for the 90 seconds. And I'm sure we could all use the 90 seconds anyway. And another thing I'd like to add is thank God we didn't choose Jason Garrett as head coach, because one can only imagine how much of a disaster that would be. That would be like dealing with fucking Ted Marchibroda all over again. And Lord have mercy, we do not need that. By the way, older generation of Ravens fans are still traumatized by that. So let's not go that direction. But yeah, my top 3 for the head coaching candidates has been Brian Flores, Robert Saleh, and Anthony Weaver. And another thing I forgot to clear up yesterday, my reasoning behind why I changed my pick from Brian Flores to Robert Saleh is because my only concern with Brian Flores is the ongoing court case with the league, and no one knows for certain how that's going to go. So yeah, so I apologize if people end up being a little pissy about that, and I just want to clear that up. And for those who are still bitching about that, shut the hell up, get over it. All right, I apologize. Okay, I'm sorry, but yeah, I had to get that out of my chest. But we certainly do need like a defensive minded head coach, who's part of the who has like playing man defense as part of the coaching philosophy, because the biggest strength within the Ravens defense has always been playing man. It's like you saw last year and this past season, we haven't really had a lot of luck playing zone under Zach Orr. So we saw how much of a disaster that was. So we should shift away from playing zone and go back to playing man. That has always been our biggest strengths. It's like we have the pieces in the secondary to play man, so let's just stick to what's always worked for us. That's all I got for y'all.
Appreciate you, man. Maurice from the top rope. I did not have that on my bingo card tonight, but I did enjoy that a lot. Just updated the pinned comment in the live chat to reflect the free access link if you'd like to join the Discord server. We are at member number 1,169, so welcome to J Dubs. If you guys want to go join that, it's a 24/7 hub for conversation surrounding Baltimore sports. Thanks to all of you who participate. Zach writes, Bobby, who do you want? I continue to finalize my or craft and consider and process my top 5 in terms of finalists. Obviously, there's 16 candidates, 15 of which are known, leading you to believe that there is a mystery candidate out there based on what DaCosta said on Tuesday. As of last night, I was in the Discord group and I started to have the feeling that Kubiak was flirting with being bounced from, meaning Clint Kubiak, bounced from my top 5 finalists. And so right now, I think in no particular order, I'll go Minter, Saleh. I had Weaver in there, so I think I got to take him out because of what we have up on the screen, which is what this entire live stream is about. He's a candidate to serve as John Harbaugh's defensive coordinator in New York, so I think I got to take him out. But maybe Kubiak right now deserves to be the 5th and final. So right on the fringe, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So I'll throw Kubiak in there. So right now it's Minter, Saleh, Kubiak. And then after that, I do think that I do want to give respect to, based on Steve's hiring process 18 years ago, I do want to give some credence to that mystery candidate. So I'll throw him in there. And then as far as a 4th is concerned, again, with respect to the retread comments the other day, I'll throw Cliff Kingsbury in there. That list will evolve. It's fluid. It's a fluid list. The capital F. Can you imagine? The confident stutter says the mystery candidate is Marcus Freeman. Let me tell you, Marcus didn't seem so confident. He was stuttering all over himself when asked about whether or not he would like to be a head coach one day at one of his most recent press conferences. Oof. Even though he's committed. He said, yeah, he's committed to Notre Dame. We'll see. Can't imagine a guy like that wouldn't want to test the waters in the NFL at some point. Guest lines. Should we give Toilet Boy another option? I can't call you that. Toilet, that's too. That's not good. I shouldn't have. 90 seconds on the clock. Julian, talk to me, brother. What's going on?
You know damn going well you shouldn't be saying that. Anyway, well, damn, appreciate the 90 seconds though. I had to change phone. Something wrong with my phone, so that's why you couldn't hear me. But anyway, I definitely wanted to talk about Steve Bisciotti, his press conference. I didn't get a chance to, but guy was just amazing. I mean, 7 years removed from talking to anybody, and he just comes back and just like nails every answer that he that's presented to him. So I got to give a shout out to him on that. I was very, very, very enjoyed that. As far as head coaching candidates right now, I want to see what becomes of the Seahawks and 49ers matchup, because you got Robert Saleh and Clint Kubiak. We want to see which one of those guys is going to get the upper hand on the other. I'm definitely going to be interested in that. So I can't really choose a favorite right now between those two. The other guy I would add is Davis Webb. From the Broncos. Apparently, they said he had a really, really solid interview. So he can make the second round of interviews coming in as well. And the last guy, I would say Brian Flores as well, but I would go with a round of Kingsbury as well.
Okay. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you. It's a 15 candidate list right now, as you see on the graphic. Apparently, there's a number 16, but we just don't know who that is. You know, I'm really curious to see how the initial interview goes with Chris Shula. Not just because his last name is Shula, but because he's a part of the McVay tree and he's a quick riser. I'm just thinking about my list right now, which again is fluid. Davis Webb is a hell of a name. He's 30 years old. Like, are they going to, John Jenkins just signed an extension. He's 36. I get that age is just a number. And believe me, you don't have to tell me twice. I'm in the dating game. I just was out with a 38-year-old the other night. Don't you want to know more context about that? Guest lines. Big O, you ready to roll? 90 seconds on the clock, brother. Great to have you back on the channel. What you got for me tonight?
What's up, Bobby? Man, real quick, because I'm on the clock literally and on the clock literally, like working at the same time. But the whole thing with Flores, man, I think the thing with Flores is he's one of the popular candidates because, in essence, like the great white hype. Well, he's a hope. He's like the black, hope, basically. From what he's been through with the NFL, what he still has pending, everybody wants him to succeed. And they see that he is a great coach, defensive coach, which is what we need. So it boils down to either him or Saleh. I look at it as the three that are top, candidates: Saleh, Flores, and Kubiak. My fourth, again, is Webb, but he's young and he needs to actually be an OC first. Right now, he's just like a pass coordinator, whatever. He ain't called plays yet. So he needs to actually call plays first before you could be a leader of men. We need a leader of men. Flores, a leader of men. Saleh, a leader of men. Kubiak, a leader of men. The Ravens franchise needs to go defensively because Lamar is our offense, plain and simple. And you can plug in any OC and we'll succeed. That's all I got.
Great stuff, man. Appreciate you. And I get it too. I get it. I get why there's an allegiance to Flores. I do. Whether it's in the black community or not. I absolutely get that. And I have respect for that. But to me, that's not the lens that I evaluate with. You know what I mean? That's not how I'm analyzing this from the outside looking in at all. I'm analyzing it on Steve Bisciotti criteria, some of which is perceived. Other of that is just straight up what he talked about on Tuesday. Another part of it, obviously, is reputation. It's performance. You name it. There's so many factors that are involved in it. Chef, you ready to roll? 90 seconds on the clock. Appreciate you guys for being with me tonight. If Chef does not turn on his camera, which he has, I was going to go to Richard, who's on the on deck circle. Welcome back, brother. You're welcome for 90 seconds.
Well, Bobby, I'm going to be the first one to say I'm not going to thank you for 90 seconds. I mean, why should I thank you for something you should have already done? I mean, 60 seconds is way too short. So, no, I'm not going to thank you for doing your job. But I will say thank you for the shows and coverage of Harbaugh news to the new potential candidates and whatnot. So I will thank you on that.
You're a pain in my ass. Keep going.
I'm just saying, I'm not going to thank you for doing your job. But I will say, I do feel like the Brian Flores things, not just with the coverage, but I feel like people really get misconstrued with the whole lawsuit. It's just like, when the NFL did its investigation for the 2020 season, they found that there was tampering. They didn't find any credible evidence of they were actually going to offer him $100,000. That's what they're trying to prove with the Supreme Court and all that other stuff. But I feel like it goes not said enough that there was a Dolphins executive that was suspended indefinitely because of the credible claims that Brian Flores did bring up. So, I mean, I feel like people still use that as still a knock on Brian Flores because it's like if you got a team of or a front office and ownership that wants you to lose, but your job, your livelihood on whether you're going to get a new contract or get a new head coaching gig depends on whether you're going to get wins and losses, if you're going to be a great head coach or whatnot. Hell yeah, I'm going to do everything I can to actually get wins because if you don't get wins, you're out of the job. You're not going to get rehired.
Well, it's well said. And that's when you do understand that just like other candidates that failed in their respective first stints, some of this had to do with stuff that was out of their control, organizational dysfunction, allegations of tanking, you name it. And perhaps that leads a guy to go down the dictator route to try and stay buttoned up and be as consistent and diligent as possible to try and keep that ship afloat. And I'm happy to have that conversation and look at that angle of it for sure. Thanks, Jeff.
Yep, that's fair. I will say he ain't the same guy that he was, like 5 years ago, 2020. So
Maybe not. Maybe
just different lens. Yeah.
And ultimately, the only guy that's going to be the only guy that's going to be able to sign off on if that's the case is the man at the top.
That's fair.
The mob boss. Later, Chef.
But my bad. Last thing, I don't care what head coach we get. I think all the candidates are great, though. I'm not. I just had to say something about Flores, but like I actually have no care in the world out of the top coaches that we are talking about. I have no care in the world about who we get. I feel like
copy that.
Everything is wide open right now.
Appreciate you, Chef. Later, brother. Richard, bring us home. 90 seconds on the clock. Bring us home, brother.
What's up, Bobby? I'm not gonna thank you for the 90 seconds either. I am gonna thank you for being only 5 minutes late and having it be for you downloading for the damn clock. So I'll say that. But okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and say something real quick. This has a disclaimer, and then I'm gonna piss off everybody that's on the live right now, and I'm gonna explain why. So, number one, my top three I would be either Saleh, Flores, or Kubiak. That being said, that's what I would like. I do not think that's going to happen. What I think is going to happen is Flores is going to go to Pittsburgh. I think Clint Kubiak is going to go to Atlanta. And I think we're going to either get a combination of mentor with Mike McDaniel as offensive coordinator, or we're going to get Vance Joseph with the pass game coordinator that the other guy was talking about in the Broncos as our OC.
Davis Webb.
Yes, that guy. Thank you. I think I can see him as being our OC. And the reason why I say that is because when you're looking at this, we have to look at this in threes. And I also had to think about the dynamic that Ozzy and EDC, and I don't know Shashi that well, but I know how they operate. I don't know if they would be willing to give a chance to work with Flores. They like guys who kind of fit within their club. And then also the Mr. candidate, I could see it being Marcus Freeman. I could see that also being a possibility.
All right.
That's it.
Three different programs reached out to them at the collegiate level. Thank you, Richard. They haven't reached out to anybody specifically, but three different programs reached out to the Ravens as they shared. Steve did on Tuesday. Maybe Vance Joseph isn't getting enough respect. I'm not there yet, though. I got more digging to do on Vance Joseph, who we'll get a chance to see in action as the defensive coordinator this weekend for the Denver Broncos in the divisional round. My Timber Shivered says, Bobby is over here saying I never ate a brownie, but he choked a cougar. Bobby is over here saying I never ate a brownie, but he choked a cougar. Why do you have to do Davis Webb's mom like that? Timber, you are not missing with some of these cryptic super chats that make you sit there, stop, stare, reread, process, prognosis. What is happening in this super chat? Thank you, Timber. You're hilarious. I got to go. I got a 7 o'clock obligation. Thanks to FanDuel. Thanks to Preston Automotive Group. Thanks to all of you for phenomenal calls tonight. And most importantly, thanks you guys for showing up. Over 1,500 concurrents and counting tonight. Like the video on your way out. Subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Sarah and I will be back with you tomorrow. We'll finish up another insane week. And that was an insane super chat to close us out. Thank you all. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy your night. 45 minutes out from, let's call it an obligation. Mrs. Trosset, the search rolls on.